Percentages. Let's begin with percentage of an amount and what percentages are. Now, percentages, the term percent means out of 100. So if we have 25%, that means 25 out of 100 as a fraction. We could simplify that to be 3/4, or we could write that as a decimal 0.25. I'll be using this method of writing fractions as decimals quite a lot. Now, if we were to find 30% of 210. Now, there are a few different ways of looking at this. A lot of people like the 10% method. So what we're saying when we're using the 10% method is that 100% is 210, and we want to find 10%. So to go from 100% to 10%, we're dividing by 10, so we do the same to our 210. We divide that by 10 to get 21. Then we're using 30%, so we're going to multiply that answer by 3, and we multiply that answer by 3 to get 63. So that's a really common method that people like to use, the 10% method. Very similar is the 1% method, where if 100% is 210, if you find 1%, you're dividing your entire thing by 100. 1% is 2.1, and you can times that by 30 to get 30%. Essentially what we're doing here is using ratios without it looking at ratios. And we get 63. A method I'd like you to get used to using, especially with a calculator, is the decimal multiplier method. Reason being, it really does make more difficult percentages questions much easier. For example, if we're still sticking with our 30% of 210, as we did before, 30% we're looking at it as a fraction, so that's 30 out of 100, which is 0.3. That's 0.3 times 210, which is the same as 3 times 21, which is 63. So if you know your percentage, we divide it by 100 to get it as a decimal, and it's that you multiply by your value. So there are 3 ways in which we can find percentage of amounts. I'm going to be focusing a lot on using this theory for the rest of the questions. Writing as a percentage. So let's just imagine you scored 21 out of 50 on a recent test, and we want that as a percentage. So that's 21 out of 50. Percentages are out of 100, so we can see without a calculator we're timesing that by 2. So we do the same to the numerator. 42 out of 100 is 42%. You can use a calculator for this by going 21 out of 50 and then just multiplying that by 100, and you will get 42%. Fraction to percentage, very similar to what we've just looked at. Let's look at 2 over 5, 16 over 20, and we want to write those, and let's say 12 out of 25, and we want to put these as percentages. Percent means out of 100. So we want equivalent fractions. We want to make the denominator 100, but the proportion of the fraction is still 2/5. So what do we need 5 by to make it 100? We need to multiply by 20, so we do the same to the numerator. So that's 40%. Same again, what do we have to multiply 20 by to get 100? We multiply by 5. So what we do to the bottom, we also have to do to the top, so 80, and that's 80%. Then one more, 12 out of 25, and we want to put that as a percentage, so once again trying to make that denominator 100. So 25 goes into 100 4 times, so we're multiplying by 4, so that's 48%. Our next topic with fractions is percentages is percentage change. Now this is a great little formula to learn because this will come up in maths, science, lots of other subjects as well. Now percentage change may also be asked or worded as a percentage increase, or find the percentage decrease, or just find the percentage change. To do that, you find the change in the values, the difference, you divide it by your original value, and you multiply that by 100. Example, let's say we start a diet and your starting weight is 95 kilograms. The final weight is 82 kilograms. What's the percentage decrease in weight? So we find the difference in the weight, so that's 95 minus 82. That's a difference of 13 kilograms. Divide that by the original mass, which was 95, and times that by 100 to get it as a percentage. Answer 13.68, round to the nearest percentage, typically 14%. Similar to a percentage change is percentage profit. Profit is how much money you make once you deduct how much you had to spend in the first place. So you find the profit and you divide that by how much you originally had to spend, multiply it by 100. So let's say you buy some cases of oranges for £10, you sell them all for £13. What is your percentage profit? Well, how much money did you make? You made £3 out of a total spend of £10. So putting that in the calculator, or 3 over 10 as a percentage, is 30 out of 100, so 30% profit. Now let's look at specific types of percentage change. A sale or something depreciating will be a percentage decrease. So let's imagine you buy a coat that's £120. It's in the sale for 20% off. What's the sale price of that coat? Two different methods I'm going to show you. 1. Find 20%. 10% is 12, 20% is 24. So 120 minus £24, because a sale you get that much money off, £96. Another method to do this is our original price of £120 is the 100%. And we're getting a 20% discount. That means the sale price is 80% of the original value. Remember, 80% is 0.8, so that's 120 times 0.8, which is the same as 12 times 8, which is 96. So either method, you end up with the same result. Now, depreciation is where something decreases in value over time. Let's say you buy a car for £14,000 and it depreciates at a rate of 2% per year. So every year it's worth 2% less. What's the cost of the car 1 year later? And then what's the cost of the car 3 years later? Now this is going to then help us with our compound interest. So the original cost of the car is 100%. It depreciates, so it decreases in value by 2% each year. So it's worth 98% each year after, which is 0.98 as a decimal. So 14,000 times 0.98 is the value of the car 1 year later. That would be the same as finding 2% and then taking it away. Now 3 years later, I would multiply this value by 0.98 and press equals on my calculator, find out what it is 2 years later, and then times that by 0.98, take another 2% off, because the price after each year is decreasing. So essentially what you've done is you've multiplied it by 0.98 3 times. So we can just raise that to the power of 3. You can do it in one swift calculation. £13,176, and if it's money, it's 2 decimal places, 69 pence. This will really help with our compound interest that we'll look at shortly. Now VAT, value added tax, is a percentage increase. In our country at the moment in 2023, this is at a rate of 20%. So everything that we buy, let's say we buy a bag for £410, excluding VAT, and we want the cost including VAT, we want to increase this by 20%. Again, our two methods, you could find 20% and then add it on. Or we could say our original amount is 100%, we're going to add on 20% to that because it's a percentage increase. So I want to find 120% of 410. So that is 120 over 100, which is 1.2 as a decimal. So easy VAT questions, you just multiply your amount by 1.2, and what you've done there is you've increased that amount by 20%, 492. Once again, this method with the decimal multiplier will really help with percentage increase, percentage decrease, and it will help with reverse percentage questions. Now, in terms of interest, we have got two types of interest. We have got simple interest and we have got compound interest. Now, with simple interest, let's take this example. We've got £8,000 in a bank account and we get 2% simple interest, and we keep it in the account for 3 years. How much do we have at the end of the 3 years? Now, simple interest means that you get 2% of the £8,000. Now, if 1% is 8, 2% is 16. 160, sorry. Then what that means is, with simple interest, that is the amount that you get for every year. So this amount is the amount of interest I get no matter how many years and how much money I've got in the account. So multiplying that by 3 gives me the total amount of interest, that's £480. That's including, we've got to include our original £8,000. So at the end, we've got £8,480. Now this is different to compound interest. A bit like our depreciation above, with compound interest, you get that 2% or whatever the percentage every year. So we add on 2% at the end of year 1. Whatever that amount is, we have that 2% of that amount. So my original amount is 100%. Every year I'm adding on 2%. That's 102%, which is 1.02 as a decimal multiplier. So £8,000 times 1.02 is the amount of money in the account after 1 year. I want 3 years, so I raise that to the power of 3. And we pop that in the calculator. And we get £8,489.66. So typically you are better off with a bank account that offers compound interest. Now, one final thing with percentages, and that is reverse percentage. Now, this typically will be on higher papers, and we're working backwards to find original price. So let's say we have got a coat that you buy in a sale for £210. That's the sale price. The sale was 30% off. What's the original price of the coat? Now, what we want to bear in mind here is that the original price of the coat is 100%. You get 30% off that amount. You don't get 30% of 210 and then we add it on, because 30% of 210 is going to be different to 30% of our original amount. So the sale percentage was actually 70% of the original value. So 70% is our 210. What we can do from here is we could find what 1% was, we could find what 10% was, because if you know 70%, we can divide that by 70, so simplify both sides by dividing by 70, to find that 1% is 30. Now we can use that to find out 100%, which is our original value. Sorry, that's 3. And then our 100% is £300. Now, the great thing about reverse percentage questions is you can check your answer. So if my original price of the coat is £300, 10% is 30, 30% is £90. If I've got £90 off of a £300 coat, the sale price of that coat is £210. And these match up